In this last video segment, I'm going to talk about our cost curves in a longer term sense. I kind of think the textbook sort of overplays this with models. It's not, I don't feel it's as complex maybe as it appears, particularly on the back of the things that we have just done that actually are pretty complex. I feel like it's a little bit more than we need to understand the main thing that's going on here. The main thing that's going on here can be characterized in three related terms. The first of these, and one that you hear fairly often in business speak, is economies of scale. Economies of scale work like this. As a firm is growing its output, as a firm is maturing, we might say, it's able to lower its cost per unit, or its average total cost. And why would that be so, or why might this be so? Well, as you're growing, you can get better, you have more negotiating power at buying things, at getting things at lower cost per unit. Your inputs, your raw materials, that's one thing. You can specialize labor more as you grow. You know, if you're a person who runs your own bakery, you do everything. As you increase your scale and you can hire more workers, you can specialize. You can have one person who's really good at this part do that part, and another person who's really good at this part do that part over there, and then you can yield more as a whole, or a lower cost per unit as a whole. So as you're growing, you're able to lower your cost per unit with the growth or the increases in scale. So this portion, this segment that I've drawn down here, in the longer term, that's why it's longer terms, because it's the growth of the firm, or it's when more machines can be added easily, or contracts can be renegotiated. So it's longer term like that. So as the firm is growing, we have this portion, which we call economies of scale, for the long-term average total cost curve, or the cost per unit of the firm. Of course, that's falling, and you can see by the way I've tapered there. So it's going to reach some minimum, and maybe it's somewhat flat for a while, and so this portion along here is called constant returns to scale. And returns to scale, what we're saying here is scale is the size of the firm. And so the return here is it's growing, but it's not getting much more yield in terms of lower costs by growth. And then this portion over here, where costs might actually start to rise per unit, is called diseconomies of scale. I don't know why I went with a capital E here. I'll change it to lowercase. Diseconomies of scale. And along this region, in the longer term, or thinking of it maybe in the lifespan of a firm, or in the lifespan of the time that the firm has been around, the arguments for diseconomy scale is that the firm has become so large, the scale is so large, that management isn't as effective at supervising what's going on, and there's perhaps lower productivity, or a higher cost per unit because of some sort of slippage, because management is out of touch with production, because the firm is so large, the scale is so large. Those are at least the arguments for this. So that's the kind of segments of the long run average total cost curve a firm might have. Now the textbook has a series of dips along a curve that looks like this, and what that's saying is, well, when the firm is still growing, that short run average total cost curve that we've already looked at might be here, and as they add another factory and really increase their scale, they might be able to lower their cost per unit even lower than the minimum of the average total cost curve that they had when they only had one factory. So the series of dips is reflecting that kind of growth of the firm in terms of scale. That's what that's about. That's what that part of the chapter is about. I don't think it's too complex. I think knowing the definition of these terms is the main event there, and hopefully this little diagram gets you there.